Welcome to our live Q&A. We're super excited today to talk about the independent film Serpentine Pink. We're going to hear a bit about how we came to this place, the background, some of the unique insights, some of the challenges. We're joined today with Vivian Sorensen, who's our director, Megan Breen, who's our amazing screenwriter and was a playwright. We'll learn a bit about that. And Olan Jones, who played the seer, Andra, which is a fantastic character in this amazing indie film. Megan, I want to start with you, and we'll definitely take questions from the audience. For folks that are watching in live, you can go ahead and pop them in the chat, and we'll answer them as they come in. I've got a couple of questions to start with, but please feel free to interrupt. So Megan, I'm going to start with you. This really started as a play many years ago. I want to learn a bit about your journey, but as you talk about that journey, what were your inspirations for developing this particular story and just the transition in your thinking of going from stage to screen?
Awesome. Great. Thank you for having us. Thank you to Lesflicks, by the way. So yeah, in around a decade ago, 2013, even before that, I before I moved to California, I got my undergrad in Chicago at DePaul, and my director friend, this incredible theater artist, Chris Garcia Peak at Cock and Bull Theater, asked me to adapt a short Grand Guignol play for his company for a Halloween show. So Grand Guignol we've done it in some of our promotional material. We've talked about it. It's like a French horror theater, like shock and awe kind of theater from the 1910s, basically like B horror movie, grotesque. Vivian visited the theater in Paris when she was there, Grand Guignol. So the story was just about a nurse and a doctor, very short play called The Final Kiss, a story about a doctor and a nurse, and then two lovers, one who had thrown acid onto the other's face. And he said, do whatever you want, just keep the acid attack. And so I went from there with the play, and yeah, for the play version, I combined that Grand Guignol style, but I wanted to transfer it to, I was obsessed with the desert, Joshua Tree, California. It has that incredible vortex of the weird and healing aspect. And so I thought that was really compelling. And also, I personally, when I write, I like to come at everything from a very personal perspective. So at that time, I was and still now, honestly, healing from a very life-changing medical trauma. And I was thinking about how the people in the play, they were trying to heal from this, what happens when your identity completely changes from this horrific acid attack. What are the different tools that you use, coping mechanisms that you use to heal yourself? So that's where I got the kind of healing aspect from it. And then just set it in that weird and wild environment of Joshua Tree, which had the kind of David Lynchian tone and style of the Grand Guignol. So all of those things kind of came together for the play. And then I started to really think about, I actually came across a leaf in the rain that was pink, and you could see from the wetness the threads, the veins of the leaf. And that's where I got the idea of Serpentine Pink. And I started to write a poem, and I saw the character of Jamie is played by Sabina Zuniga Varela. And that's where that's where the whole poetic style and content came from. So all of those things came together for the story that we have with the play. And then the second part of your question about how did it
go from stage to screen? Yeah.
Stage to screen. Well, it was when we were, I think it was you, Olan, or Kristen, or was it everybody from the play? So everybody in the movie was in the original cast in the play in 2013. We did a workshop production at Sun Assembly in Los Angeles. And one of them, I think we were all just kind of like, this would make a really great movie. So I tried to, I took a stab at a screenplay, and then Kristen really got the ball rolling and said, let's find a producer for this. And that was where we hooked up with Ron Hanks. And so in writing it, he was very encouraging of my unique, weird voice. And he said, just, keep that vision, keep that wild, weird voice of the play. But think about how it can translate to, visually. So I have one of my challenges as a writer is thinking literally and what's actually happening. So that was one of the challenges in adapting it, because in theater, you can kind of just go all over the place. You can be abstract as you want, imaginative as you want, which you can do in film, obviously, and this movie is proof of that. But, how do you make it more, describe things a bit more literally? I didn't have to do as much establishing through language, because you could establish things visually through the incredible locations that we got with the production of the movie. Mostly the most changes that I had to do was with the language and making it, yeah. So how do you say poetic? How do you articulate things poetically in a more, I don't know, brief is, brief, but briefly, but also what is completely necessary. So that was the main focus of adapting it. And then I got to add certain things because we could actually be there in those locations. So like the whole Buddy the Mouse sequence, I got to kind of map that out. In the play, you just talk about it. And yeah, so those are the biggest changes that happened with adapting it into a screenplay, and then just trying to think about what is actually happening. So that's
there's so many juicy nuggets in there that I want to circle back to. But Vivian, I want to kick it over to you. I didn't actually know that you had a chance to go visit the theater in France as well. Was it before or after?
After.
Oh, after.
Yeah, after. Incredible. Yes. Yeah. Megan and I were sort of texting back and forth.
Tell me about
it doesn't exist anymore, but
you're in the area.
Yeah, it certainly serves as such a fascinating part of Paris's history of theater, but also I think as inspiration for Serpentine Pink, and something like that. I think it's important to keep circling back to the original inspiration of something.
How did you really get involved in this project and then dig in? Because it is so unique. I mean, you've got the desert that's essentially its own character. You've got these really unique, particular characters that sort of make up this group. And the group has been working on this together for 10 years as well. So you were the newbie to it. So tell us a little bit about your process, how you got involved, and what that journey was like.
So my background is very much as a theater director. And so the process of going from theater to film I'm not a stranger to that. In fact, my first black and white short film, Silent Love of the Fish, was first a play. And I was the only one who saw it as a movie. And everyone was like, there's no way that's a movie. And I was like, nope, that's a movie. So it just like, my brain just goes there immediately. Because film is very much an emotional medium, for me, it just meant that we were taking that play and turning it into a road trip, an emotional road trip in a sense. So for me, it was a lot about like finding the narrative behind, in a sense, like I won't it's not exactly magical realism, but just for the purpose of this, we can call it that. It's just like, how do you connect the dots? But I also grew up in New Mexico, and so the landscape of the desert it's like my, it's what I see when I close my eyes is the desert. So that it's a dangerous place, but a beautiful place, a place that can pull you in with its magic, but the magic can also kill you. Like those are themes that just play over and over again for me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I directed a short film with our producer and our cinematographer called Five Teenagers Walk Into a Bar. Also, strangely enough, in Joshua Tree. And I think Ron, who's a producer on Serpentine Pink, saw how absolutely weird and crazy I am. And he was like, yeah, you're the one who can. And I'm saying that in the best way. Like I'm saying that in the way that like you know, again, like I can go there, and it's what I love to do. My brain is incredibly creative. And so I think he just, you know, immediately thought like, okay, she's the director for this project. And then I actually met Kristen, who plays Henrietta in the movie, on the day before New York City closed down for COVID. And she and I met. I walked across the Williamsburg Bridge to meet her. I'm sorry, the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was just one of those days that you will never forget. And I'll never forget sitting there with her. And I knew that this was the movie we were going to be making.
That's fantastic. It's amazing. It's been such a journey, and we're going to come back to some of those themes, but I want to cut over to Olan. And it's funny because I always see you as Andra. Always see you as that just ethereal character. You've had so much experience in theater, in film, from large films to indie films, to running your own theater company, to being involved with Megan and some of the other folks as part of TheaterWorks. I'd love to understand from your perspective again, I go back to Journey, but what the experience with Serpentine Pink has been like, and what that character has meant to you, and really going from that play to it into an actual film. And did you ever think it was going to be and actually make an actual film? So I'd love to just talk a little bit and hear a little bit about that journey for you.
Yeah. Well, I so trust Megan's strange point of view. Like just the evidence that this clearly, obviously started from seeing a wet leaf. It's like undeniable source of inspiration for an entire play and then an entire movie. And so, you know, from a very early age, a teenager in New York, I was part of everybody's experimental mind. And because I do generate a lot of opera and theater and things myself, it's like paid vacation to go on somebody else's ride and just give over to their vision. And the thing that I love about Megan's writing is that, for one thing, it's really hard as an actor to access that poetic core. And even though she did make a few adjustments for the movie, it's not naturalistic dialogue. And it's more like the dialogue of the soul that doesn't speak out loud that much. And so in a theater situation, you have to be in that place and project. And so part of the fun of doing it as a movie is that, it only has to come out this far. I can stay inside where that soul part is without having to project to the back row. And, you know, we did a reading of this screenplay. I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 years after
It was during rehearsals for the opera Sino-Sema.
Right. So I think it was like
2018. Yeah.
Yeah, after we'd done it. Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Then
okay.
That's the one I read a year later, right?
Yeah.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been through this like hair-raising rehearsal for this other collaboration that Megan and I have, where she's the librettist and I'm the composer. And I was in it at that time too. So we were all like wiped out from doing this big physical rehearsal. And then we read through it's like, didn't we say we would read through this screenplay? And so we did. And it was so alive that then I thought, oh, well, yeah, this obviously can be a movie, because it's still, even in the state we were in, the livingness of it penetrated.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I love the little nuggets of stories that this has been such a journey. Mm-hmm. And actually, you know, your comment on it came from a leap. I remember the first time Megan told me that, and I was like, it's a beautiful picture and I can see, but that's a leap. That creative brain down, it's tough to keep up with. I love it.
We're like, send me the leaf, send me the picture.
Yeah. It was that'll explain everything if we see the leaf.
Vivian, circle you, what were some of like the surprising aspects or some of the more really difficult, elements that you've sort of discovered, whether it's on set or through this journey?
Well, I was just going to say, like we were talking about the leaf, and for me, I just kept going back to, well, the core. It's a relationship, right? That's broken, and people who are broken, and does want to heal, but can't even find that inside themselves, and so people come. Andrea and Shaman come to help them find their way. And helping people find their way, to me, meant a road trip. And so the road trip for me was always like the thing that goes bump in the night. Two people fight. And when you fight, you lose a part of yourself. You lose your center. And what happens when you lose your center? You're not focused. And things can happen. And I just was like, I just kept returning like to the leaf. For me, it was always, these two women who love each other, but I can't find it in that moment. And so they hit something in the night, and that something is something that gets hurt. And then what do you do about that with each other? And you blame each other. And that's at the core of so many relationships. And so for me, it was very much about like finding the family. And I also like, and circling back to what we were saying before, yes, I inherited an amazing cast, an amazing playwright, an amazing play. And I really honestly tried to like respect that at all times. I came in as an outsider, and maybe, in some ways that's a great thing because I was completely fresh. And there were times when I was like, well, this is the way I saw it. And I'd be like, well, no, this is the way it was, and to be honest with you, that's some of those challenges were there, which is like a cast that's already done it on stage, and me who's never seen it on stage, and I just see it as a movie. I think that was perhaps some of the most challenging moments for me, but it also gave way to probably the most like amount of creativity, and I deeply respect what everybody brought to the table. I can't imagine trying to make this movie with a cast that had not done the play. Everybody came with so many beautiful layers of understanding it and brought that to me. And then I was just like, well, let's get in the car and drive. And, can you guys like, this is where you're at. Like, this is what's happening. And also because it's a play and just about these beautiful images and powerful forces, I wanted to play in that landscape as well. So for example, the deer and snake dance at the beginning of the movie was, very much about like, I don't know, the beginning of an opera, maybe. Yeah. That's sort of what's coming to me. But anyway.
I think that's phenomenal. And it's so funny you're saying that, because one of the most memorable, I think, aspects of the film, just even in the desert, where we really had this incredible costumes, the incredible makeup with, Sabina and Kristen in these two sort of animalistic characters, and the dance of, this life, this trauma, this challenge that they're going through. It is so uniquely Serpentine Pink. It was just incredible to watch and be a part of. But you also mentioned really kind of coming into this, and I don't know that we've recognized this on this conversation yet, but this was a powerhouse of women who were all in these leadership roles. And Megan, you were like there on the phone all the time, up all night with, Vivian and others adjusting things. And so Vivian, I think that creativity of, some things might not have worked, but there was just this incredible partnership. So I, love, Megan, from your point, let's go to Vivian, and then I want to go to Olan, but really about this question of women in these leadership roles. We had an entirely, female camera crew. We had the bulk of everyone on set was female, which was unreal. Megan, let's start with you and just what that experience was like. Now, you didn't get to be on set with us, but you were there in spirit and on the phone all the time. What's the evolution, and did that like play into your planning as well as you were thinking about this going to screen?
The women-led aspect?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that beginning sequence is such a great example. I mean, I'm very inspired by the feminine divine, the divine feminine, the divinely feminine, the idea of, not to sound, well, okay, yeah, to sound magical, yeah, the creator having this kind of female, not kind of, but having this female essence, and looking at the world through a female perspective. How does that affect the structure? How does that affect the energy, the fluidity of the piece? Being the idea of time is also very much this like feminine idea, like, going, everything being fluid, I guess. And I think, something that was very important was having the cinematographer, Elizabeth, having that female lens, that perspective. There's a lot of intimate moments in the movie, deals a lot with trauma, deals a lot with intimate partner violence trauma, specifically between a lesbian relationship. And to have that camera lens be so well taken care of and so thoughtful and so not careful in a way, but mindful of that intimacy was really important. But also, what does it mean to have the female, the landscape, the what does it mean to be a woman and also have wildness, when so much of storytelling likes to suppress the wildness of women, likes to suppress the power of women. So like a character like Andra, who is very powerful spiritually and supernaturally, but also so human. She has all that life experience to give to Henrietta. Like, that's not what love is. The abusive aspect that is arousing to you through Jamie is not that is not love. So you have that experienced female perspective through the characters, and then then every aspect of it, the costumes, Vivian's whole perspective as a woman dealing with that special road trip, the bond between, the whole thing affected it. So that was just really vital. And then also something that was really fascinating too was thinking about, I loved the how Carrie found the fawn prop, this incredible fawn prop, and how that talk about how it changes from play to screen. So in the original play, it was a doe deer. And then we had this incredible fawn prop, and you guys called me in the middle of the night. We're like, is this okay that we have this? And I was like, yes, that's fascinating. And Sabina was just very much like, okay, how does this change my character in terms of dealing with, I don't want to give anything away from people who've watched it, but like, how does it change from dealing with this, a mother animal to a baby animal, and reworking that whole motif through that lens was very powerful. Thinking about a mother, and then that changed the whole monologue that Kristen has, Henrietta's deer monologue, her David Lynch moment, the close-up where she talks about what it means to be vulnerable as a female animal, but just as a woman in that moment of violence. So it couldn't have happened at all without the careful thoughtfulness of the set, everybody on the set, and then everybody creatively. And it was very, very important.
Yeah, thank you. So I am much newer to this space, but being there, the energy there, it was such a family, and everyone really wanted to pull together. And I don't know if you saw it pop up on screen, but Sabina is actually watching from New Mexico right now. So hi, Sabina, we miss you. She plays our amazing Jamie, and at some point we'll do a bit of a live Q&A with her as well. But Olan, I want to pop over to you, Vivian, before I get back to you. But again, your history, your experience, I'd love your perspective on the dynamics with really so many women on set and that have been involved in this process, and what sort of bubbled up for you?
Well, I have to say, it just sort of felt normal. And if I'm analyzing it a bit, I think that a good part of the atmosphere when there's a preponderance of powerful women is that nobody feels they have to prove anything. They're just like doing their work. And it's so, yeah, I have to say that it mostly just felt natural. I didn't question it or marvel because I have been around all these powerful women, and it just seemed the way to do it. So
That's phenomenal. It's I like the framing around that of like people aren't trying to prove themselves to each other. It's really just digging in, getting done, being really collaborative. I mean, Megan and Vivian, you've both mentioned that as well, as like saying, "Oh, I really want to honor the work. We got to stop. We got to wake up Megan in the middle of the night, have a conversation," which is incredible. Vivian, I'd love you to touch on the female aspect as well. I mean, we had a production designer, we had camera crew, we had a costume designer, we had all kinds of folks, which was exciting. But then as you think about that female lens, we've got a great question, which I'll pop to you first and then have others share. But what's the biggest thing you want people to take away from this film and any other fun memories on set?
Biggest takeaway, I would say, it's funny. The biggest takeaway has changed for me, and I'm gonna go to there's trauma in the movie, and it's visual, and it was a big decision for me as to really own that visual and to really go for it, because there would have been a very different way to go, and so to be raw about what is awful and what is vicious and oozes and is ugly, and to just like own that. I'm so proud that we did that. And I do mean that. Our makeup artist was incredible. Kristen, the actress, like she owned it. It was like to have the hours that it spent to put that makeup on, that we all just sort of like Elizabeth, who shot it. I mean, there were times when I'd actually look through the lens and cry, many times. And so I want people to take away that we, like, I guess I'm maybe somewhat saccharine, but that there is that people hurt each other. But there is healing that can happen. And we were talking before about normalizing, Elaine. I felt very much that it was a normal set, that it was a normal place to be. And I didn't even notice in some ways that we were all women. And yet I also know that collaboratively it was very feminine in its orientation, even though I wasn't necessarily aware of that. And again, sort of back to the fawn, like the idea that there is a fawn, a baby in this movie, a baby that gets hurt, and that we all have this baby inside of us that that is, like, how do we take care of the baby inside of us? I don't know. Just like, but the healing, I think I would say that the biggest thing I would take away is the healing, and just so much fun. My God, it's like, again, like I'd look through that lens and sometimes I'd have like tears just streaming down my cheeks, just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I don't even know what to say right now. In the middle of the night with snakes and freezing cold, and we're exhausted. Elaine had the most amazing day up on this, like in this like canyon that we shot in like the middle of the night, where we were lighting up mountaintops. I mean, it was just, like, the fact that we all came out alive is just amazing to me. And it was so beautiful because it was like you were part of the mountain. That's what I felt like. I felt like you were actually part of the landscape that night. It was just so stunning. And the work we were doing with the dirt and the land and the mountain and the cactus. Anyway, I didn't exactly answer that, but I answered it in many ways.
You did, and it was great. It was great. I mean, I love the fun stories. I want to stick on the boulder. I just remember it was, we rented it as like the boulder house. That was for some reason. But just to paint everybody a picture, it is this crazy boulder rock formation that had a little bit of a valley in it. And so you could sort of stand on the edge. So for me, the incredible aspect of that is you've got all the crew like climbing around in these boulders. Our lighting crew was absolutely amazing because they were playing with all these different colored lights, pinks and greens, and setting these lights up in really strategic positions. And then Ron, as a producer, actually did projection, and it was projection mapping. So it's technology where you can actually map onto the rocks. And so the effect really becomes this beautiful display. It saves a bit of time in post, but it just creates a different experience, I think, for the actors for sure. But Olan, I'd love the same question for you. Like, what would you take away, and what are some of the, sort of behind the scenes fun memories from set that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, that climbing the mountain was certainly memorable, and it's true.
I mean, you were going up and down and up and down.
A lot. I think I got a badge somewhere for Mountain. I mean, it was great, and it kind of speaks to the thing that I feel is a takeaway from the whole thing, which is degrees of connection, like to each other, to a landscape, to a spirit, false connection, something, a made up connection, the depth of, I always felt there was a sort of familial relationship between me and Henrietta. And that just the fact that Shaman and I are working at a distance on two aspects of this relationship to bring it to something where they understand something different. And so I would say degrees of connection is what would be my takeaway. And of course, like, fun fact, we shot this fast. We were doing like 5 or 6 pages a day. And I wouldn't know if you'd call it fun, but the memorable thing was, there was once when there had been some rewrites, it's like, learn 3 pages of dialogue for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that there were like, it was intense. It was very intense all the way through. So you didn't really have a chance. I didn't really have a chance to step out of that world. I was in it or learning it the whole time.
And can I just say, your relationship with Shaman was just so extraordinary. And when the two of you would just go, I would just step back in awe. Like, it just, I don't even, when you're in the edit, it was like, I don't know which scene to pick. They're all like, every moment you just like work off each other. It was really remarkable.
I love that. I want to pull on that familial tie, right? So we've got these 2 sets of amazing characters, and I hadn't even thought about it that way, Olan, but you're both sort of working at those opposite angles to try to help create some, not really a resolution, but healing, right? In each of your own unique way, and the background of each character in their own unique way. And, I think in just, and Megan, I want to jump to you on this for sure, but in just sort of seeing it through that lens is really interesting, because each character has this aspect that they need to heal. And then in each way, they're sort of helping each other, which is sort of just an incredible experience that you see pieced together like a puzzle over time, which was just, unreal to watch. And then to your point around fast, I think Ron and I walked away, we're like, this is wild. We shot a feature in 12 days in Joshua Tree and moved locations so many times, and
we shot at night.
In the middle of the night. So,
and it was cold.
And kudos to Kristen Condon, who plays Henrietta, and Sabina Zuniga Varela, who plays Jamie. And just the 2 of them sitting in the desert floor at the middle of the night at different stages in different places in these beautiful costumes, but they weren't like, really covered in blankets. And so their ability to sort of deliver was just incredible. But Megan, I want to kick it back over to you. I mean, this has been your brainchild in many ways for the last, decade plus. What do you want people to take away? And does that change from what you wanted people to take away from the play to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think something beautiful that we captured in the original production and that Vivian beautifully captured as well in the film is this idea that nobody heals in one way. Everybody heals in a different way. And, there's a lot of talk today about healing. There's a lot of marketing and, people trying to say this will heal you or this will cure you. And I think that there's a lot of pressure to heal fast, and to once you're healed, you're cured and that's it. And the thing that I wanted to get across, which I feel like everybody did in both versions, is this idea that you don't stop healing, that it's a continual process, and that it's okay to do it your own way. I mean, it's like Shaman's line. He has that. He's like, "Hey, man, it's a process. You, especially with a character like who deals with addiction." And that's pretty much what I wanted to get across. And that pain can be, in the play version, the main thing was like, the original director, Nathan Singh, had this brought to me that I don't know if he originated it, but this great term, a theater of trauma, right? Like, so how do you reach catharsis when you bring a traumatic experience to the audience? Because you don't want them to be traumatized, but you sort of want them to be able to navigate through those traumatized feelings so that you can come out of it with a different perspective. So not to say like, oh, we're going to heal everybody, but like to say like, how do you go about that healing process? So a lot about the play was like immersive, putting everybody through I think one of the things I'll never forget Olin said was that this play has no safety net. Like it's really about like you said, that danger, but like keeping everybody like safe within that scope. And that's what we really wanted to create with the play, like to really atmospherically immerse ourselves. But with the movie, what I loved was, like your production company is so mindful of social impact and, how do we deal with all of these intense traumatized feelings, but how do we do it in a way that's rigorous and authentic without over triggering people, or without, how do you keep that danger? How do you heal yourself without having to just keep re-traumatizing yourself as well? Yeah, so the movie was a bit more mindful of that because it's been 10 years and we've had perspective on how people go about the healing process. So that I would say is the main difference.
I love that insight as well. And it's very true, right? Like there's so much out there in today's world that talks about how to best heal. And it is a journey, right? It isn't a pre-packaged with a bow that you wrap up and you put it aside and you're done. It is a journey. And and certainly what I appreciated about your approach to it is really thinking about how do you be really authentic. And Viv, you talk about being really proud about, some of the makeup and really showing that trauma, but not, making it gore or over traumatic just for the sake of it. It had a purpose in the story to help move the story forward and keep that. And I love the word raw, right? Keep thinking about it in the terms of that raw quality, really authentic, which I think is super important. But I want to, circle back to Olin and thinking about Andra and what's the most challenging aspect of that. And you did I agree with Vivian, so many incredible scenes with Michael Harris, who was our shaman, and absolutely wonderful and amazing. And I think built and made for this role. 100%. But tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about some of those most really challenging aspects, aside from being rushed. Really hard production cut, which I would never do again. But
I may not think of it in those terms of challenging. I think of it like my technique is to get brainwashed by the words that I saying the words, feeling the words, calls something up, calls different aspects up, and then it hits a critical mass of something and it's a character. So really, I mean, the joy and the difficulty is giving over to Megan's words, because they're poetic, but they're precise.
Right.
And that's why it may have a stronger effect than somebody with just platitudes about healing, because it's a precision path through feeling. And so I would say that was the joy and the hardship is following that road. So
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And having had, I think, the experience through the play is probably many different ways, different challenges, which is, fascinating to watch you do that as well. I learned a great deal. Megan, what advice would you have for playwrights wanting to transition to screen? And interestingly enough, Vivian, I think that there is actually both Vivian and Olan, you've done sort of a combination of both. So I'll kind of kick that question over. But Megan, start with you. What advice would you give?
Well, I think, my answer to this would have been different a while ago, but I think like I said before, I think our movie is proof that there's lots of ideas about what movies should be, specifically the structure. And, theater can be plays, stereotypically can be so imaginative. So you can do whatever you want. There's no rules. There's no end. And a lot of when I was, this is my first feature. So it's still pretty new to me. Besides just watching movies my whole life. But the idea of, I've just kind of been told and taught that screenplays have to follow a certain formula to be effective. And, Olin has been so great at reminding me, and, from the time we worked on our first collaboration in 2008, that these storytelling doesn't have to go one way. So, there are filmmakers, especially in the indie world, where they support specific voices, unique voices that, what is how do you can keep your vision. Don't think that you have to follow all these screenwriting rules that certain gatekeepers kind of put on you. So you can keep that theatricality, you can keep that imagination. If you're that type of playwright, I can only speak to the type of playwright that I am. But there is a place for the theatrical voice in film, at least in independent film. I mean, if you look at, there's so many incredible films today that are very imaginative and experimental, and so that would be my main thing. But also, like, it was very interesting to think about how to transform poetic language, poetic ideas into something literal for the director to look at when you read. Because my mind is, I'm a weirdo. I think I'm more comfortable thinking abstractly. I know some people have, challenges thinking abstractly or poetically, but that's how the visceral way through is how I immediately go. So to write things out, like what exactly, I remember in our first discussions with Vivian when she's like, what's the timeline here? Like, what exactly is happening? And I was just like, how do I know instinctually what it is, but like, it was a great practice, rewriting certain aspects of the action is like, what is happening literally? I'll never forget in one of my screenwriting classes at USC, one of the guys was like, of course it was a, guy screenwriter was like, he's like, this is a literal form. It's a literal thing. And I remember thinking, yeah, it is, but also how do you combine a specific unique voice that is poetic with something literal? And I tried to do that. I mean, I had guidance with Vivian and then Ron, and then Olan, who's had all that experience with the kind of experimental screenwriting, screenplays. So that was a long way to say, you can basically do whatever you want as well. but try to be, think of it as an exciting challenge and how to combine the abstract with the literal, because there's all sorts of ways you can do it in film.
I love that. And I love the context you provide there too, right? Like, I think we're often told things have to be one way. And so being innovative and breaking some of those barriers and knowing that you can find, folks who will want to be on that journey with you. And I love your note about really sharing different voices. And that's just so important to drive people recognizing themselves in a story, drive empathy, drive understanding, and all of that as well. So we're gonna do a couple of things. One is we've got another question. I'm gonna do a roundup on that. And then towards the end, we're gonna show the trailer, and then I'll come back and have you guys do a final comment, final takeaway, final thought. So let's do the question. It says, how do you keep sane on a set, or how do you keep sane on set of such a crazy film? Crazy in the best way. Let's start with Olan.
Okay. Practice. No. Well, if one as an actor has already surrendered to this is my world, it doesn't seem crazy. It just seems this is what I'm doing. So I would say it's just focus on the particular aspect that's being expressed at the particular time.
I love that. Try not to get anxiety, overthink things, really be focused. That's great advice. Vivian.
I would say it's work with your team, and you're all there together. And everybody is bringing their, we're all asking each other to bring our best to the table, right? So trust them that they are doing this. And when you're feeling a moment of craziness is coming over you and it feels like it can't be done, there's also the go away and take a moment, just take that breath, and reorient yourself and breathe, and knowing that you're there, you're supposed to be there. And people will feel that when you come back again. And I think, and it's hard to be playful, and it's hard to direct or to act or whatever it is when you're panicking inside. And the creativity doesn't happen in those moments. So it's really important to know that and to know what you need to do to put that to the other side so that you can really focus. I mean, as a director, it's something I have to do a lot. And I'm very experienced on large sets and dealing with lots of people. And I know that when I'm most calm and focused is when we get to the best work. I hope that answered that question.
It does. I mean, I think that's phenomenal. And it just reminded me as well, like, it was amazing. And it was a great family, but there were absolutely moments of tension. There was tears, there was challenge, and to your point, there are many of people going for a walk, many of I need to go sit in my car. I need to go, sit over here. And what, it's sort of as an outsider reflecting in but there was always people there to help sort of reel you back in.
Larissa, you have to tell the story about the truck. I just want to say that you were our fierce leader, and this question really needs to go to you. Our Kimberly the truck. That's a good one. No, I don't think I slept, but here's what I would say. And this was just fun behind the scenes stuff. So our truck, we named Kimberly, but it was like a 1963 Chevy where you have the gears on the handlebar. Brakes weren't great, and it wouldn't necessarily get into gear. So there was many a scene where I would get it going, hop out and lay in the back while, while Jamie and Henrietta went off into the scene. We never knew if the truck was actually going to turn over or not. And Larissa just had this you just would have this mindset, your brain and the gears would just become one, and no one else could make to turn this truck on, but you could. Sabina actually could. It was like
we practiced.
The two of you. But the thing is, these challenges create such a community and so much fun. So when the truck would actually go, we would all get so excited to just feel that like the truck was one with us.
Yes. Do you remember? I actually just came to me as well. We had the tow truck driver because it got stuck in the sand, and we were like, "Okay, you're gonna be in the scene because you're driving."
And this is where we're gonna shoot the scene because truck won't move.
Oh yeah, we had some interesting cars for sure. Now, Megan, you weren't on set with us, but you were deeply on set in spirit. How did you survive? I mean, we were calling you, waking you up in the middle of the night, trying to make sure that we were aligned. How did you sort of cope with that and manage during this crazy couple of weeks filming?
Well, I had, let's see. Yeah, about 15 years at that point. Oh my gosh, 15 years of playwriting experience. And so that's kind of the same thing when you're writing a new play is you're giving pages 2 days, 1 day, hours before the opening. So that wasn't new to me. So, and you have incredible cast members like
learn lines really quickly
who know how to do that really fast and just take it in stride. So trusting them, but that honestly, that aspect was like, that wasn't anything new to me. It's kind of like, you always talk about how a play is like a live animal. Like it's constantly evolving, growing. It's alive. And I feel like the movie was like that too during production. Like, how do we keep this animal going? So that was mainly my mindset in terms of, giving pages and insight.
So amazing too. I just want to say, like, it'd be like, okay, this is where it's not that there wasn't pushback. The pushback was, I would call it conversation. Like, it's like, well, there was this, and then, and you just met us there. It was just incredible. And then there would be like, we would go a different direction just from the pages that you sent us. It's just an extraordinary, and like, I just love the whole collaborative experience.
And I would say there was many a time that I called Megan to take a walk just to be like,
yeah,
I just need to talk to you.
Yeah, you were integral as well, and calming me down and telling me about what was going on, giving me the play-by-play. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Larissa, you were incredible at connecting all the dots for everybody.
It's quite the experience. So we're gonna watch the trailer, have that on, and get folks excited that haven't necessarily seen it yet. And this obviously will be out after it being live. The recorded version will be out on social media as well. And just think, while we're playing the trailer, any other final thoughts you want to share, stories you want to share? And for those watching, and I know people are always interested in behind the scenes, we'll definitely do a blast out on social media of some amazing pictures, because we did get incredible pictures of behind the scenes. So we'll share that in a minute. And here.
You're so cheesy sometimes, you know that? That's what I do, baby girl. I give you things. Kissing is the sweet before the storm. You killed her.
Told you not to hang around her.
Please stop.
You whistled. Oh, Henry. What did I do to you?
Open your eyes to the nightmare.
It hurts, don't it? Wanting something so bad and not getting it.
Isn't this what you wanted?
Oh, I always love every moment and every sort of different type of trailer we have, which is phenomenal. So just a quick roundup of comments, thoughts. They don't have to be super short. Stories you want to tell. Megan, let's start with you.
No, I just love the incredible landscape. I think all the locations that Ron got were that everybody got were incredible. Really, the landscape is another character in the movie, and I think I just love how we captured that. And then just all the incredible performances and design and everything. Everybody just fully went there, and I loved it.
Thank you. Vivian.
I just wanted to comment on, in a way, something that you said, Megan, which is that, and also Alan, what you were talking about your words. I feel like my job was connecting the dots between your words. And as a director, I love, like, I feel like I'm given a window frame and I get to look out the window and create the picture. And it was just, I looked at that trailer and I can't believe in 12 days that that's what we did. And I think that's a tribute to like some powerhouse ladies and powerhouse team too, because we were a group of creative people. So yeah, so connecting the dots between the words. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. Actually, there's one last thing I did want to say. One of my favorite scenes, and I didn't know how to do it when I first read it, was chasing the desert mouse, shaman chasing the desert mouse. And to me, that and looking at it now, and we used it quite a bit in the movie and in the edit, and it expresses to me the pathos of the movie. It's like finding the moment that expresses the movie, and to me, that truly is the pathos of the soul, and the absurdist nature of all of that. That it's so absurd and sad and painful and sweet simultaneously. And that's very much what I feel like the movie is.
Thank you. And Olan.
Yeah, well, for one thing, I seem to have missed the part where everybody was going for a walk or going to the
You went on a long walk. Remember, you walked up the mountain.
Well, yeah, but I mean the to get away and regroup part. It seemed like it was all fine to me. And I think I just value that the opportunity of being in something that hasn't been done before. It seems to be my natural habitat. And so I love being part of a team that's bringing something new to life.
I think that's fantastic. So I want to thank everyone for joining and thank everyone who's going to watch it or has watched it. And a really big thanks to the cast and the crew. We didn't have Kristen Condon, who played Henrietta, Sabina Zuniga Varela, who joined, I think, online. She played Jamie. Michael Harris played our amazing shaman as well. We had Joy Nash, who played Stella, which was just amazing to see that come to life as well. And Gregory Cruz, who played the voice of Kimberly. So thank you again to everyone for joining us. Folks, you can check out some of the link. There's going to be available to watch the online screening still. You can go get tickets. There's an amazing virtual gift bag for anyone who buys a ticket to the screening that has some music and some memes, behind the scenes stuff, all kinds of really neat quotes and things that were put together. And thanks again for supporting independent film. And we will talk to you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.